So sleep is one of those things that we all basically need to do, whether we like it or not. Some people enjoy it, some people don't. Some people struggle to get a good night's sleep, and some don't have any issues at all. One of the challenges that I've always needed to contend with is I'm a bit of a light sleeper, and I find that the most simple of noises will just wake me up, which is quite a challenge in getting an uninterrupted night's sleep. Over the years, I've had a few different solutions which I've tried, and a new recommendation I've discovered just this year. So if you're looking for noise blocking technologies, not noise masking as opposed to other products. So for example, Bose has a SleepBuds product which provides, they're basically Bluetooth earbuds. What they do is they provide white noise or nature sounds across to you, and they mask any external noises that way. I'm not going to talk about anything like that because I prefer silence when I sleep, or as close to as possible. So here's a couple of sleeping aids, noise blockers that I've tried over the past couple of years, which I found to be helpful. So first cab off the rank is simply Max earplugs. A few years ago, I was traveling and I found that I needed something just to block some external noises with my mode of transportation. I found these in a chemist and they were exceptionally useful for that, and I've been using them for many years. One thing I'd call is that because I'm a side sleeper, I actually need to cut the ends off of these to shrink them a bit. I'll put a photo on screen in a second just to make sure that they fit comfortably. In terms of their performance, they're rated at 32 decibels of noise attenuation. In a practical situation, what that means is they block low frequency noises that are relatively far away and persistent, so some traffic, some noises. But if someone revs an engine, you're going to hear that, for example. A leaf blower at 7 a.m., you're going to be woken up by that. Talking from neighbours and loud parties and so forth, you're going to hear what's going on through these, but it'll reduce a lot of the low frequencies. Like it'll cut the bass out, but you'll hear the trebles and so on and so forth. So it's not a magic bullet solution. It's going to make things a little bit easier, but it's not going to completely give you the silence that you'd want. In terms of prices, you can get a jar of these on Amazon for $30. I think you get 50 of these. So they're not too expensive. You do need to replace them over time as the earbuds themselves become soiled with earwax and whatnot. So you are going to need to be replacing them, swapping them in and out and so forth. So it's an ongoing cost, but it's not that expensive. So the next product that I tried was the Happy Ears reusable earplugs. Now, in a nutshell, what these are is they're a plastic sort of earplug which fits into your ear, creates a seal as you'd expect. The main selling point of these is they're sort of a hard plastic and silicone, which means you can wash them and keep using them over time. It's only when you physically lose them or they break in some way that you have to get replacements. Now, this is kind of a starter set, if you will, which has different sizes. For me, these are completely unusable. No matter how I mix and match, I can't get a good seal with these. So as a noise blocking technology, these just don't work for me. They're well intentioned though, so I don't mean to give them any grief for that. It's just for me in my use case, these just don't work at all. They advertise 25 decibels of noise attenuation. That's 22 to 26, depending on which of these you're using. It's already not as good as the foam that I just mentioned. So just keep in mind that it's potentially a good solution for some, but it's already not the best. Next up. Now, I don't have an example of this next one at the moment, but it is basically what I call malleable earplugs. So this is things like beeswax, pellets or balls, and these little sort of silicon balls that you would sort of essentially roll up in your hands, and you press it into your ear and you sort of mold it to the shape of your ear to create a seal that way. Now, I have tried those in the past and I find that they simply don't work for what I need them to do. What I mean by that is when you're first starting out with it, the warmth of your hands will make it a little bit easier to work with. So you sort of shape it, you put it in your ear, and then you sort of squish it down to create the seal. But the problem that introduces is when you're trying to sleep, you need to be as bored and as uninspired as possible. The very fact that you're using your hands to do something is causing stimulation in your mind at a time you really don't want any kind of stimulation at all, because that's just going to make it so that you struggle to fall asleep. In addition to that, the actual noise blocking they offer, it's just not that great from what I've experienced, so I have just not been able to use them. I've tried beeswax and I've tried the silicone versions of them. Neither of them really work for me, and you do need to replace them over time as well, so they become sort of soiled with earwax and whatnot. The next option is something that I've discovered just this year, actually. So a couple of months ago I was on a forum looking at different alternatives, and this was actually recommended. It's called the QuietOn 3. What this is small form factor noise cancelling earbuds. So the story, as I understand it, is that a bunch of ex-Nokia engineers got together and did a Kickstarter, and they've produced a couple of different iterations of this same product over time. And this is not the latest, there's one that's just after this, but it's relatively new. So one thing that I noticed right off the bat is this one's actually made in the EU, which you don't see that often, so props to them for pulling that off. In terms of sort of the unboxing experience, very simplistic, simple cardboard packaging, sort of a brochure with some information as to how to fit it, how to wear it, how to work with it. Inside you get the case and the earbuds and some different foam ear tips, just to put those on and try out to get a good fit. Not going to go too much into that because it's somewhat irrelevant, but here's the actual case itself. So this is small form factor, very smooth, very easy to fit into pockets and whatnot. This will probably live by your bedside most of the time, so it's not going to be an issue transporting it around, but if you did want to take it with you, it's not going to be a problem. Small form factor, slim, matte plastic finish, nothing on the bottom, nothing on the sides, just the brand on the top, USB-C for charging. Now, one thing to note is the indicator lights. This is the charge status of the two earbuds, and this is the charge status of the battery and the case itself. With this product, there's no app, there's no Bluetooth, there's no connectivity and none of that nonsense. What that means is that these visual indicators will be everything you'll need to know about the battery status, the charging and whatnot of this device, so you will need to pay attention to those over time. That being said, this is rated at 28 hours of battery life. I've basically used this an entire night and left the earbuds out of the case, and they've been working the next night just fine. So I think it's not really going to be a problem in terms of battery life at this stage. Brushed aluminum, 3-pin charging, and these are magnetic, so when you drop them in the case they're going to try and find their home. One thing to call out is maybe once a month I'll put the earbuds in, I'll close the case, and I haven't seated one of them correctly, so one earbud's charging, one's not. It doesn't happen often at all, maybe once a month, so it's not a serious problem. Now, in terms of sort of noise cancelling earbuds and technologies, I have tried the Apple AirPods Pro before. I like the noise cancelling and what that actually did, but the problem for a side sleeper like myself is the plastic stem, the size of those is just too much. They don't fit comfortably in the ear, so I can't use them for sleep. And fair enough, they're not intended for that. They're meant for phone calls and playing music. With these, they're very small form factor, very slim, meaning that it's very easy to fit this into the ear and to side sleep with them, and they're not going to cause too much discomfort. So I've removed the foam ear tip for this one just so you can see the true size of it. The stem is relatively small. The unit itself is not that big whatsoever. It's basically smaller than a thumbnail. When you first get these and you start using them, for that first week, they'll be very uncomfortable and you're going to regret buying them and trying them. But after that first week, you will acclimise to them and they'll basically disappear into your ear when you use them. What I will call out is that this is smooth plastic here. It's not rubberized or coated in any way. So when you're sort of laying down on the pillow and you sort of move your head and you shift a bit, you're going to hear some excess noise coming from this just when you're doing that. So just bear in mind that will occur. In terms of these, you've got a right-left indicator stamped there, but it's so hard to see that you can't tell. In my case, I'm fortunate enough that I use different sized foam ear tips on each one, so I can tell which is left and right just based on feel. One other call out is that these foam ear tips will eventually need to be replaced over time. I'm sure they'll be good for quite a long time to start with, but they will eventually degrade, need to be replaced. It's something like $30 to $40 for a replacement set, so it's quite costly. The unit itself right off the bat is $400 Australian dollars, so that as well is quite pricey, versus some of the other solutions that I've mentioned, which range from $10 to $20 to maybe $30 for a bulk option, and the happy ears of $40 is for the starter pack, if you will. So right off the bat, this is the most expensive option, but in my opinion, it's actually the best out of everything that I've tried. So in terms of real world uses and scenarios, leaf blower at 7 a.m, it'll cut it by 2/3. You will still hear it and it will wake you up if you're a light sleeper, but it's going to take the edge off it quite a bit. Other noise sources like traffic, roads nearby and so forth, this is really going to cut that out to quite a strong degree, but you will still hear some noises from it. Normal sort of apartment sounds, doors closing and opening, bangs, creaking, whatnot, is going to cover most of that, but you will hear some strange noises coming through what this is doing. An example is you might hear someone sliding a drawer open and closed. I'm not sure why that comes through. It's probably just higher frequency than everything else, but of everything this is blocking, you are going to hear something that's just come through, and it's going to be quite obvious to you. I did try these in the office, so I took them in. They mute a lot of the background noise, like the air conditioner and the sort of murmur of the place, but you can still hear people talking quite obviously. And I remember, and this is kind of weird, but I remember when I had these in, I was testing them out, someone next to me came back from the kitchen, they just sort of slammed down a mug of tea on the desk. I don't know if they're having a bad day or whatnot, but I just very clearly heard that through what these were, noise cancelling, if you will, and it just stood out to me. Probably more so because other noises had been blocked, which was interesting. I think the problem with pretty much all noise cancelling technology on the market at the moment is that it only is able to achieve noise cancelling for persistent low frequency noises. Higher frequency noises like laughter, talking, higher pitch, things like that are just going to come through, and that's a problem that all the manufacturers have at the moment. This, in terms of the actual noise cancelling sound, if you will, it's close to silence. So if you're in a big empty room and there's no noise whatsoever, you get that sort of very faint whine in your ear. It sounds similar to that. It's basically AirPods Pro, but a little bit quieter. So it's not going to be, it's only noticeable because you're actually actively listening for it when you've got these in your ear and you're using them. Snoring is the other example. It will cut it by about 1/3, maybe 2/3, depending on sort of the voice, if you will, of whoever's doing the snoring. Lower frequencies, deeper voice, you'd hear a bit less. Higher frequencies, higher pitch voice, you'd probably hear a little bit more. It's not a magic bullet, unfortunately. You're still going to hear some snoring, but it's going to take the edge off for you. And I think it's pretty much the best alternative you're going to get, unless you can fit over-ear noise cancelling headphones, because those physically block the noise quite well. With the foam ear tips, you do get a good seal. You've got passive noise cancelling as well as the active, so these aren't bad by any stretch. It's just there's a very big difference between big chunky over-ear noise cancelling headphones, which you can't side sleep on, versus small form factor earbuds, which you can side sleep on, which is my preference personally. In terms of this, as I mentioned, there's no app, there's no Bluetooth, there's no connectivity, which personally I find fantastic. I love the simplicity of it. You open the case, take the earbuds out, you put them in your ears, they're already working, the noise cancelling is on, there's no buttons, there's no fooling around, there's no nothing, which I quite like. As I mentioned in my earlier point, when you're trying to sleep, it's best to not have any distractions or to be trying to do anything. You don't want to be stimulating your mind in any way, shape or form when you're trying to sleep, because it'll just put you into a thought loop where you try not to think, which causes you to think, which puts you in a loop instead of you being able to fall asleep. So I quite like the simplicity of these. I've been using them for several months now, and I find that they're quite effective. I will still hear noises from time to time, but it takes the edge off whatever I'm hearing, and it definitely reduces sort of the ambience and the noise of the environment that I'm in, which is great. One thing to consider, though, is it's quite a pricey option. So if you're looking for something that'll get the job done on a budget, just go with the max earplugs. There's options intended specifically for sleep. You get a jar of them for cheap and they'll last you for quite a while. But if you're willing to invest in a good night's sleep, I would recommend the QuietOn. I think that they are fantastic. They have their limitations, as does every product at the moment, but they're probably the best you're going to get for now in terms of the form factor, the comfort, and the actual noise cancelling that they do. The moment a manufacturer comes out with noise cancelling that covers all the frequency, high and low, I'm immediately going to buy that. But for now, as a compromise, this is probably the best you're going to get in that space. So anyways, hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you for watching.